We're starting something new, which is always exciting. We're going to be learning Megillat Kohelet. So just a little preface first. A Megillah, the word Megillah comes from the word Megaleh, something that reveals. The Megillot were written with Ruach HaKodesh. So the purpose is to reveal a different prism on reality that we can't get just from rational observation. What's Ruach HaKodesh? We spoke about this in other classes, but just to make mention of it again. The aspect of the soul that's called Ruach is the part of the soul that, like the wind itself, is unstable, that moves from here to there, that's sometimes inspired and sometimes not. But it yearns. It's the yearning self, the choosing self. Ruach HaKodesh is a state of being that a person reaches when their choices primarily are Kodesh. The word Kodesh, which is holy in English, means separate from all things that limit. Time, space, subjectivity. So I just want to quickly speak about what makes our lives so limited. So let's look at time. If we look at any of the great historic mistakes that the Jews made as a people, for instance, the sin of the spies in the desert. If the spies would have seen the fall of Jericho, if they would have seen the walls fall down, the great miracle, they never would have said, this land is inconquerable. So it's because they were stuck in time that they failed. So time holds us down. We don't see things in perspective. Place holds us down. The fact that we're physical holds us down. So how does that work? Anybody who's ever done this sort of sin, where the problem wasn't hashkafic, but it was that the body spoke louder than the soul, knows what this means. So many mistakes that people make both on an individual basis and on a collective basis come from our physicality. An example of that would be lack of derech eretz, which almost always comes from the pursuit of comfort or ease, or sometimes from impulsivity, but it has to do with the body speaking so loud. The third thing is subjectivity. We want to know what we want to know. We want to hear what we want to hear because we want to validate ourselves. So a person with Ruach HaKodesh is a person whose spirit, their choosing self, their aspirative self, isn't held down by this. And there are people like this. And in fact, many of you may have at least looked at the book Mesilat Yesharim, Path of the Just, which quotes the Talmudic recipe of how one moves towards Ruach HaKodesh. First by being careful with one's deeds, ultimately by being a person of humility and holiness and receiving enough help from Hashem where they see things without the limitations of time, place, and subjectivity. So these works, all of the Megillot, all 5 of the Megillot, were written with Ruach HaKodesh, which tells us that by learning them we move a little bit beyond ourselves. This particular Megillah, Kohelet, is one of the 3 works that Shlo Hamelech wrote. He wrote Shir HaShirim, Mishlei, and Kohelet. He wrote them at different times of his life. He wrote Kohelet towards the end of his life, and it's meant to be a book in which his accumulated wisdom is transferred. Okay, so with that, let's begin Kohelet. Divrei Kohelet ben David, Melech b'Yerushalayim. These are the words of Kohelet, who is of course Shlomo. We'll speak in a minute about why he refers to himself as Kohelet. Kohelet also means gathered. These are the words that were gathered by Ben David, Shlomo, David's son, who ruled in Yerushalayim. We're going to analyze every word because this first pasuk is very much our key to the rest of the book. It begins with the word divrei. Wherever the word divrei is used, it's meant to tell us that what's going to come next are going to be words that are hard to hear. The word davar literally means thing. Now bear with me, this idea isn't so easy. We whenever we talk about anything, we're talking about its limitations. If I say this is a cell phone, which it is, it means it's only a cell phone. It doesn't go on forever and have many, many possibilities. All it is a cell phone. This is a hand. All it is a hand. It doesn't go on forever. It's not an elephant. It's not a ceiling fan. All it is what it is. The word for word milah is the same word for circumcision. It's something that cuts out the extraneous so you can be focused on what something is. There are different words for speech in Hebrew. The most commonly used ones are dibur or amira. Amira is meant to be conceptual, the bigger picture, which invariably is softer. Dibur is meant to be incisive, where you're focused on its limits.